Hello, we are Geeks Assembled, and today we are discussing a Nicholas Roeg movie based on a short story by Daphne du Maurier. We are talking Don't Look Now, starring Julie Christie and Donald Sutherland. It's classed as a classic horror movie from the 1970s. But in my opinion, it's not really a horror. It's more than a horror, I think, this one. But we'll delve into that as we go along. So for opening thoughts, we'll go to Connor first because I think this might be the first time he's seen this. I think it was recommended to him. So over to you, Connor.
It was recommended to me alongside Roman Polanski's Repulsion, and having watched this yesterday, fantastic movie. Loved it. Really loved it. First of all, Julie Christie, never heard of her before, but God, what a looker.
What? You've never heard of Julie?
I've never heard of
Julie Christie is?
Never heard of Julie Christie, but I'll tell you what, if this was the 70s, I would have had her up on my bedroom wall on a poster.
Thank God you said that then.
Now, she's one good-looking woman, I must say. Donald Sutherland, as always, is fantastic. He's kind of on the Mount Rushmore of actors now. I think the older he's got. Still acting today, I believe. He was in the Hunger Games films. This movie, though, yeah, you're right. It's not really a horror movie. It's more of a psychological trip into how grief, I think, affects people. And it's a movie that kind of heavily relies on themes and motifs. So you've got the breaking glass is kind of the precursor to something happening, which I think happens about 3 or 4 times in the movie. And then you've got the water, obviously. The water is a huge part of it because it starts off with their daughter unfortunately drowning, tragically. Yeah, there's just like loads of little motifs. The color red also seems to have some significance, I've noticed. But yeah, superb movie. Didn't expect the ending. The ending was a wow. That was wow. I just, to be honest, I didn't expect it to play out like that. I didn't read up on the movie before I saw it, but that's not what I had in mind when I had the movie recommended to me. Having said that, yeah, like it's just such a great psychological movie. I don't even know what genre it is because I wouldn't call it a horror, but I wouldn't call it a psychological thriller. There's a bit of a supernatural element to it as well because you've got the psychic, the 2 women as well. It's a few bits of a few genres like put together, I think, in many ways. Nicholas Roeg is obviously a fantastic director. He's done loads of stuff. He's quite well known. Yeah, I just it's very twisty and turny, and I like how everything in the movie doesn't make sense until the very end. Then you kind of he realizes, so it's almost in real time, that everything he kind of saw in his I guess head, the psychological effects of grief, or what could be perceived as like flashbacks or premonitions. He was much like the psychic woman was telling him that they were in danger staying in Venice. He was almost seeing his own death. And there was one point in the movie where the psychic woman says that she thinks he has the gift, whether he's trying to suppress it or not. So yeah, I think it's a strange movie if anything. And I like the serial killer angle towards the end. It kind of comes out of nowhere, but it's funny how the last scene almost is like he is a serial killer, because the way that he approaches who he thinks is Christine, or a child in the Red Mac, and it turns out to be a deformed kind of dwarf. It's almost very serial killery. So when you almost think when the police are going to find that body, they're going to think, oh, case closed, it was him. So he almost didn't get the chance to clear his name, I don't think, of being suspected as a serial killer, which the detective that he went to go see about Julie Christie, when she supposedly went missing, suspected him to be the serial killer. So it's a very twisty, turny movie, and it's nothing what I expected at all. I absolutely loved it. Yeah, great performances, particularly by Donald Sutherland and Julie Christie. But I'm wondering, they lost a daughter, but they shipped the son off to boarding school. I mean, would you do that as someone that kind of has lost a child? I don't know. There's kind of questions of like, are they good parents? I think throughout it as well, which isn't really addressed in the movie, but that's just what I felt like. Is that a way that a grieving family would react? Surely they'd band together a bit more. But anyway, yeah, that's my opening thoughts.
Well, I'm sorry you didn't like it, Connor. Let's go to Tim.
Yeah, I can agree with just about everything Connor said. I'd never seen this movie before all the way through myself. I'd seen bits and pieces, but I never had sat down and watched it. And I've always heard it's a great film, and it is. But Connor's right. It is kind of all over the place. A lot of things happen just like that out of nowhere, like the ending, and I think that's because you're right. It is about suffering a loss, but the whole thing is also about guilt too. It's clear to me. Well, that's one more thing I'd like to say is that this movie is very ambiguous too. They don't really explain anything to you, and they leave a lot of things open ended. Because it's clear to me anyway that the Donald Sutherland character also has the gift at the beginning.
Yeah.
Nobody tells him his daughter is drowning. He just suddenly has a premonition that one of his kids is in danger, and he runs outside, and he's too late to save her. So I mean, and you see that throughout. He also has a premonition of his own funeral when he sees from the tram he's on his wife and the two psychic ladies going on their way to his funeral, which is what we see later at the end of the movie. So I mean, that's why he thinks his wife is not where she's supposed to be, where she is in back in the England or whatever with the son. So it's also, there's a scene where she pretty much accuses him like of being negligent. So you have a good point there about how they treat their kids, Connor. But on the other hand, they were so in grief after this accident happened that probably they figured that was the best thing to do. I'm not sure why they went to Venice, because it looks pretty dowdy. I mean, in this movie, I don't know if it was in the 70s how it looked, but it looks like a slum, to be honest. I mean, I don't think, it's not the beautiful Venice they're always asking you to come visit. But yeah, as for there's a lot of strange scenes in this movie, like that elongated sex scene, which is very out of nowhere, and you're just like, where'd that come from? This looks like porn almost. But it's like it's almost like they're trying to show that they've gotten over their grief or something, and so they're acting outrageously, and this is where they are. I mean, the whole movie seems to stem on that whole grief thing and their mental attitude. And so this is where they get past it somehow in a lot of ways. I think that's why that scene is there, because it's a very controversial scene at the time. And then like you said, the ending comes out of nowhere. But again, I think, is that really what happened to this guy? I mean, does he really get killed by a dwarf? I mean, so much of this is dubious and in the minds of the characters. I mean, so it's hard to say, because you could say that symbol of that little, what you think is the little girl running around in her red raincoat, is just another aspect of his guilt. And this guy definitely has the sight. He sees things, and so he thinks he's open. Like, for example, he's been told that he's in danger if he stays there. and then he has that accident, and so he thinks he's past it. He thinks, oh, I've had this accident in the church, so I'm that's good. What a relief! I didn't die. It's good. I'm good now. And then he gets killed. So you're just like, okay, this is, one of the things I like about this film is it doesn't tell you anything. It just kind of leaves it all there. It's all kind of ambiguous. It really just is all about these characters. So my first thought, was where the hell did that come from at the end? Because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense on paper, but when you think about it, you think it through, it makes a kind of sense in your head. So anyway, that's all I got for now.
Thanks, Tim. We'll go to Susan.
All right. Well, it is sexy as hell, and yeah, it's that long sex scene in the middle is it's of a place also because it's set in Venice, and everybody who thinks of Venice thinks of romance. Venice is sort of the thought process involved with Venice is romantic, and so they leave their English estate, and they've got their son in boarding school, and their daughter dies, and so that's the cold side. And then there's, you enter into Venice and it's all warm, but yet it's shot with such drab colors. I mean, Venice is bright and vibrant and so much color, but it's shot downplaying all of that. And so in a way, it's like this romance and this sex and this power that is the only color is that is really vibrant in this whole thing is the red. The red of the anorak, the red of the blood, the red of the mosaic, all of the everything is starkly drab except for the red. And that is, I mean, it's like it's putting a crowbar in the idea of the romance. Anyway, and it's sort of like a weird, slow, like chase scene. I mean, the whole movie is sort of a chase scene through Venice until finally, he dies. And so, I mean, like that's also, I mean, you go over the water and through these teeny tiny narrow alleys and streets and into sort of squares, and I mean, it's kind of a chase scene throughout the whole movie. And the other thing that I got from this is that it's sort of a trust movie. Everything is sort of like trust and mistrust, trust and fear, trust and evil, that evil intent, villainy. Anyway, just trust versus that, and that's really those were my takeaways. Back over to you.
Thank you, Susan. And we've got Ethan back with us. So over to Ethan.
Yeah. No, I've got a bit of a bad signal on this side, so if I cut out, do apologize. But yeah, I really like this film. Actually, I like these kind of films from the 70s and the early 80s and stuff. And as we've all said, it's not really a horror film. It's a bit of a mixture of different types. But I suppose I'd call it a psychological drama, really. But it's got I love the style of it and the editing of this. It's, as we've mentioned, there's a lot of themes and motives to this, like the whole water thing and a lot of the color red. And it's got a very impressionist style to it. and I love impressionist styles. And it's a very well done, twisty kind of movie. It's got great actors in it, great soundtrack, and it was at the time anyway. It was known for controversially known for a certain but brilliantly done sex scene in it, which really did go quite far for that time. But Donald Sutherland plays a really good role in this, and it is about the grief of losing your child. You know, what do the parents go through and stuff. And it is really interesting, like the whole thing, like where he's sort of seeing his whole, you don't know until the end, what he's been seeing is his death. Yeah, it's his death that's coming. So you got like the funeral boat, and he's trying to call out to his wife, but she doesn't answer. And the classic famous girl in the red coat, which isn't, it's actually a serial killer dwarf. And I'll never forget, the first time I watched that did creep me out. That was probably the scariest bit in the movie. That really did creep me out, because it is unexpected. You're thinking, I was thinking maybe it's going to be like a zombie version of his daughter, or like a ghost or something. But you never expect it to be a bloody killer dwarf with a meat cleaver. But, you know, and it was just, but it was so well done, for that time as well. But it is a creepy scene, and of course it then clicks in his head, like, too late, obviously, that it's his death. And I liked how at the end it gives you that little montage of all those little scenes that gave clues what was coming. And it's almost like some of the scenes were sort of out of sync. Like there was one shot of the wife, and it's raining, they're in a cottage in England, and she looks sad, and the car's driving away. And it was almost a random kind of bit, and you're thinking, but when you see the montages at the end, it sort of all gels together, doesn't it? You sort of think, that's what's happening. But yeah, I've seen this movie about 5 times now, I think, in my life. I haven't seen it for a long, long time now. But yeah, it's still got it. It's still an interesting movie. There's a lot of analyzing and themes to it. But I do like these kind of movies. I always like ones that play with your mind and stuff. So it still holds up for me. You know, it is an old film, very old film now, but it still holds up for me. So yeah, enjoyed it many times before, enjoyed it now.
Thank you, Ethan. Yeah. Well, everybody seems to like this movie. Am I going to change the? Yeah, I like it. It's it's it does it as Ethan just says it. This type of movie makes you think, and it's his, as everybody said, it's his story of his premonition of his own death, leading up to his own death. And yeah, Tim said he has got the gift, because there's every so often he has these premonitions, but he doesn't realize it. He doesn't know he's got the gift. But he's seen these things. As I say, he sees the funeral barge. He knows that there's something wrong with his daughter at the beginning of the movie and all like that. But it's so well acted. Donald Sutherland is such a great actor. He's been in so many movies and TV shows. And Julie Christie, what can you say about Julie Christie? Look at Connor's face there, Julie Christie. Every time I say her name, but yeah, it's so well done. The scene, and I can understand what Tim said about Venice looking dull and drab, but I think that was just the back streets of Venice and not the main stretch, what everybody knows and goes to see. But I like that because it was showing you the darker side of this city, which I thought was quite good. And also, I did like when the Italians were talking, they were talking Italian, and for unknown reason, the director of this movie, there's no subtitles, so you know if you don't understand Italian, it doesn't matter because it just goes with the flow of the movie. So I like that.
It wasn't a hindrance. I know what you're saying. There were many times I was like, how come there's no subtitles? It's that you don't need them. You kind of know what they're doing. They're kind of you know what they're thinking.
As you say, it doesn't hinder the story. You go with the flow of the story, and you get the sort of gist of what is going on in that scene. But the ending is a bit left field for me. Out of nowhere, a little dwarf with a knife. That's not really explained. But as it said, does it need explaining? Leave it open and stuff like that. But that's the only. I don't think it's negative for me in the movie about the dwarf thing, but it just comes out of nowhere. You'd have thought something would have led up to that part, but nothing. It was just there, boom, and then it was the credits sort of thing. Yeah, but I enjoyed it. As Ethan said he's watched it about 5 times. This will be I think mostly 4th time I've sat down and watched this. So, but it's a classic movie, but not a horror. Definitely not a horror, but it's a masterpiece. So let's go to what shall we do? Favorite moments. Oh, go on then, Susan. Over to you.
Well, the sex scene was my favorite moment, and also the scene where the mother and the 2 sisters were doing that first conversation about about their kids and the death and stuff. That was really intense and cool. So those are my 2 favorite moments in the whole movie.
Thank you. Let's go to Tim.
Well, again, it's hard to pick any favorites. This is one movie you cannot predict what's going to happen next when you're watching it. You're just like, because it keeps shifting the focus, and I think it's meant to. That's really one way of putting on display a grieving mind in a lot of ways, or because basically you're focusing on this couple's grief from the start, and then there's all these other things that are going on. Like, when I was watching it, I literally thought it was kind of going off the rails at that one point when he kept visiting these police officers, like you said, and it goes into Italian, like you pointed out, and so since you don't understand what they're saying, you kind of don't know where it's going, and it seems like okay. And by that time, the wife has gone off to see the kid in school, and then he has a vision of the wife on the way to the funeral, and you're like, okay. So I guess when you look at it as a whole, it's a movie more about a feeling than it is about an actual plot in a lot of ways, which is very hard to pull off, but others have done it. This is a good example of them doing it because everybody likes this movie, but they can't really tell you much about what it's about, to be honest. You're right about that. Even his death looks unconvincing, I would say, and I don't think that's bad special effects. It looks like red paint, and you're just like, okay, why does it look so fake there? Because you've seen other scenes with blood, and it doesn't look that fake. You know what I mean? And it's just like that whole image of his feet sticking out of this kind of cave of a wall kind of thing, and just the blood dripping down. You're just like, I mean, is this even real? That's what I was thinking. Because I mean, you're right. That scene comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're just seeing what this guy's been having premonitions of his death throughout, and finally it happens. You're just like, I don't know. It's really hard to put your finger on what you're actually seeing in this film. But on the other hand, you kind of get it. And it is not a horror movie. It's basically a psychological event type thing where I don't know if you're meant to be in the guy's head the whole time, because he definitely is the main focus of the film. It's mostly, you don't know if what you're seeing is mostly inside his head or mostly just, I don't know. It's hard to put your finger on, but yeah, it's definitely a good movie. I mean, it's definitely an odd movie that you really can't. I don't know. I can't get my head around it. But yeah, as for Julie Christie, yeah, Connor. You are.
Oh, look at that. He's smitten, isn't he? He's smitten. Let's go to Ethan before we lose him again.
I know it's a bit of a bugger, but I think I might have my signal back now. Now that I'm back on here by the looks of it. But
Favorite moments, Ethan?
the sex scene. So
yeah.
I'm not surprised with you. It is a very good sex scene. For some reason, I actually remember a very good close friend of mine who, unfortunately, isn't here today. He passed away a few years ago, Jim, and he was a very hippie sort of guy, and he loved these kind of films. And I thought of him where he was like, "Oh, I love that movie. It's one of the best sex scenes ever in it." And so I instantly thought of my friend Jim. But yeah, it's a very stylish scene, and we've all said Julie's such a stunning woman in it. But I think I quite like how it starts as well. You sort of get, if you've seen movies like this before or something similar, you sort of get when you suddenly the glass shattering, or I love the way the picture, that eerie photo of like the girl, but you're not quite sure if it's the girl or is it the dwarf, but with the red hood, and then there's like, it looks like blood coming along, and of course it ruins the picture, and that all symbolizes what's coming. Something bad is coming, and like the death of the girl, the water, and all this. But I liked that. I can't stress enough how much I love this kind of stuff. I love impressionist stuff and impressionist art. And as Lee said, I actually really like the back alleys of Venice. We're all so used to seeing how beautiful Venice is, but I love it when it actually shows you the dark side of the city. It was just, and the way, because they are like that, the narrow streets, they're so narrow and dark that it works so well for those parts. I suppose, I gotta say, I do, the ending, even though it comes out of nowhere, it's a classic scene, that dwarf just popping out of nowhere. And I like, as Tim said, you're not quite sure, with Donald Sutherland, is it in his head and stuff like that, or what? I do love it when it plays with your mind like that, and you do question things. That's when it's a good movie, where you're questioning the themes and like what's going on with the psyche of that person. I always love films like that, and that's a sign of a good thinking movie. But the ending, you sort of got endings like that in some old films like that, where it did just go straight to the credits and stuff, and of course you got the funeral and all this. But yeah, I think I'm trying to think of other favorite moments. One little bit actually, again with the whole Italian thing, that you'd never understand what they're talking about. I liked how they did that. You don't get subtitles, you just go with the flow. But I liked the bit where it was quite funny, where it's Donald Sutherland, and I think he's trying to find his wife, isn't he? And his wife's with the two nuns, and they're doing a seance. And of course, he's listening through the door, isn't he? And the two Italian guys come out, and they're like speaking, "Oh, what are you doing? What are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, English." I think there's something quite authentic about that, because we've all done that, like Spain or Italy or France, and they're still trying to say, you're like, no, English, I'm English, I can't talk your language, mate. There was something about that I thought that was quite authentic. It's quite an authentic movie. I think those are my favorite moments, probably. So yeah, over to you guys.
Thanks, Ethan. Now we were going to go over to Julie Christie's #1 fan. Hello, Connor.
There's hotter women than her, like Anne Hathaway.
Oh,
I knew he was going to say that. As soon as he said this hot women, I thought he was going to mention that.
That's just a bucket of ice water.
We've had this conversation before, Connor. Now, come
on. Yeah, my favorite moments. Yeah, I would say the ending is probably my absolute favorite moment. But just thinking on it, I noticed something when Julie Christie's character Laura first meets the two women in that toilet. If you look in the background, there's an old woman there that looks suspiciously like that dwarf.
Yeah.
And I
thought
never
that
realized
well.
that until I've just been rethinking the movie in my head. And I'm wondering if that's kind of also a kind of subtle hint that's been picked up on by to the eventual death of her husband.
I would say you were right, but after 50 years of discussing this movie, nobody's ever mentioned that before or brought it up. But you'd have to see a picture side by side, I guess.
I'll have a look myself, see if there's.
It does look
something about
suspiciously
that,
like her.
I always thought that. I always thought that too. I thought there's something suspicious about that wee woman.
But
Yeah,
that woman in the background wasn't
Dress
a dwarf.
hiding, and then she goes.
She was just
Yeah,
stood in
she
the
wasn't a
corner.
dwarf. That's the thing.
Anyway, yeah, that's something that I always like. I picked up on actually, and it was racking my brains there. But yeah, I think Ethan's right. It's very stylistic. It's artistic, and the way that it's edited, I would say, is almost revolutionary. Probably for the time, maybe not anymore, because it's got a lot of quick cuts and stuff like that. But yeah, I would say it's a very artsy sort of movie. It's a bit of a piece of art, if anything. And yeah, I would say, yeah, the ending is probably my absolute favorite moment. But I do like the beginning. The beginning is quite good because it goes on for quite a while, but you don't see it coming how it ends, and it is very slow, suspenseful sort of build up because you see it kind of getting a bit close to the water, and you think, oh, is something going to happen? But then she kind of pulls away, and then her brother comes down on the bike, kind of looking a bit unstable. And you think, oh, is he, something going to happen to him? And because it's a horror film, you do expect something to happen, but you don't know when. And I think dragging out the beginning like that, because it must have gone on for at least 5 or 6 minutes, which is unusual for an opening scene. Yeah, it's very suspenseful. I think that's probably the closest thing I would say comes to apart from the ending, a horror movie scene. Like Ethan said, I do like the idea of kind of portraying Venice as this kind of like dowdy, dark city rather than what we've got used to in romantic comedies and all that sort of stuff. Because it just gives a new perspective on it, but also like love and grief are two very strong emotions, and to have a city like that, like attached to love, that much as Venice is, like really nasty stuff like murders and stuff must go on because it's kind of it's a place for people with strong emotion. I know what I'm trying to say in my head, but like it kind of it's like it's another side of the same coin. So you've got love, but then you've also got hate. So maybe the whole idea of murder and stuff like that, there being a serial killer, is an interesting contrast to what we associate Venice with. Yeah, I think that my favorite aspects of it are the more artistic sort of editing techniques and way it's shot and everything. So I think Nicholas Roeg, in many ways, there's great performances by Donald Sutherland and Julie Christie. I think he's kind of the standout of it. If anything, I think it's the direction, the way that it's edited, because that pushes the story forward. And I also wanted to point out about the Italian thing. Yeah, I was wondering that myself. I was wondering, there's no subtitles here, but cinematic language, if you can show it, it's show not tell, really, isn't it? So the idea that there's blocks of dialogue that you can't understand doesn't take away from it, because it's also showing you what what is going on and the emotions of the scene and everything. So yeah, it is probably an artistic choice, I'm not sure, by Nicholas Roeg, but yeah, it works. It doesn't hinder it, like Tim said.
Oh, there, that was abrupt ending there, wasn't it?
I felt
I
like
thought you
it was
were
quite a
gonna say
natural
it,
conclusion, actually.
Very 70s styled.
yeah. For me, this film is a European movie, and you get the feel of it, you know, because you get the Hollywood movies, you get the European movies, and this is artistic, stylish, so edited well, European movie. And there's so many out there, and I've seen many, and this one is a standout. Even if you don't follow the story, if there is a story, because this movie lets you make up your, as Tim, I think it was Tim said earlier, you make up your own mind of what it is about, where this is from, where did it go from there. It's a bit it just leaves you with a few more questions than answers, which I think is quite good. But I agree with Connor as well. The direction by Nicholas Roeg is tremendous in this, as is the two performances by the main actors. I can't say anything else really, because I think you've gone through everything. It's just Venice, though. Yeah, it made me want to go. I want to go to Venice now. I've never been. I want to go. Anybody been? No.
I think it had the opposite of. I was surprised at how slummish it looked, but you're right. Maybe they were intending to show you that it's not all it is in the pamphlet. You know what I mean? It's there's actually a dark side to the city. That didn't really dawn on me until we had this conversation. But I mean, because I was throughout disappointed. Just the hotel rooms looked kind of dowdy. I mean, it looked very, very much like the cheap side of town, I guess.
Well, what also you got to realize is Venice is very, very old.
Very old, very old. And this was during the 70s when,
Yeah.
I think everybody was in a recession back then or something. So it's hard to, maybe it was just run down or something.
Yeah,
But maybe that was the intention of the director, though, to show you the darker side, like you guys have pointed out.
Venice is constantly under reconstruction or being scaffolded and stuff like that because it's sinking.
It's sinking away, isn't it? Yeah. In a way, as we said, we're so used to like it being quite colourful or bright and romantic. You've got the romantic movies and rom-coms and all that. Yeah. But while there were little moments of romantic fantasies, with a sex scene or them getting ready to go out, walking together, I like how it's not completely right. I think in a way, it's sort of, I liked how it was sort of saying, not everything is the movies. This is how things are in real life, sort of thing. And I think that's what I liked about the movie. It was a very gritty, grounded, realistic movie while being impressionistic at the same time. But that's what I liked about it. I thought it's truth. And it's a good, interesting take on it. Like something you wouldn't get these days. Because some people would fantasize it so much. But this one is just like, no, not everything's all fantasy or romantic. It's a bit slummy and you've got a little dwarf coming after you. Maybe not that last bit, but for the movie anyway.
Oh, right. Anything else what anyone would like to say before we go to final say? Oh, Susan?
This is what the dialogue says. It says, one of the things I love about Venice, it is that it is so safe for me to walk. And John says steps. And then Heather's the blind psychic sister. And she says, thank you. She says, the sound changes. You see, as you come to a canal, and the echoes from the water are so clear. And she says, my sister hates it. And John says, that's too bad. And Heather says, She says it's like a city in aspic, wrapped over from a dinner party where all the guests are dead or gone.
Hmm.
I mean that's incredible.
I still want to go.
You have to
Well,
take someone with you, because it's a city of love. They don't like single Pringles on their own.
well, I'll go look for the dwarf.
Yeah, that dwarf.
I was going to say. I still want to go to Venice anyway. I'd love to go to Venice anyway.
Right. So we'll go to final say and scores now. Ethan.
Yeah. 5 times I've seen this now. Great acting, superb acting, actually, fantastic from Donald and Julie, and the rest of the cast as well. Great soundtrack. I love the music in this. Great setting. As you said, whether there's a story in this or if it's for your interpretation or whatever, it's great. All of it great. So I'm actually going to give it a 10 out of 10. It still holds up for me, this film. And yeah, I like it. I like it a lot, this film, and I still do. 10 out of 10.
Well, there you go. That's first 10 out of 10 from Ethan on this one. Let's go to Tim.
Well, I agree with Ethan that it's these movies that are ambiguous that try to present feels rather than an actual plot in a lot of ways, and that managed to pull it off with a great cast, like you said, and it leaves you still trying to figure it out so many years later, like what all does this actually mean. I love those kind of films too. This one, I would give it a 9.5 though, because I don't know if I can give it a 10 until I've actually thought about it some more. But it is a masterpiece of what it's trying to do, and it's very one of a kind film. I think you didn't really have those kind of films, and I'm guessing the people that went and saw it either were, well, that's a ripoff. Where'd that dwarf come from? Or they were just like, oh, this is something to think about. You would have to think about what you've seen and try and piece it together in your head. So I'll give it a 9.5.
Cool. Yeah, I don't think Walt Disney took them to court about using dwarfs. Let's go to Connor.
Gets an 8.5 out of 10 from me.
Cool. Susan.
Well, it's got some amazing parts to it, and the whole I'll give an 8 out of 10. I enjoyed it, but I don't see it as a perfect film. I mean, I enjoyed it though. So
Cool.
work for me.
Right. Yeah, I don't think there is ever going to be a perfect film. But prove me wrong, people. Yeah, I'm
I
gonna
would put The Dark Knight Rises up there.
no. Anyway, we're moving along from this Nolan fanatic. I'm going to give it an 8.5 as well. It's thoroughly enjoyable. It does make you think, and as like Tim said, them type of movies are just few and far. There's not that many of them about now, but once they come along, you've got to enjoy them type of movies. So yeah, that's what I'm giving that.
Well, since Donald Sutherland did all of his own stunts and his sex scene, that's pretty hot.
He didn't like the sex scene. Apparently, he says it wasn't that sexy. Once you've got cameramen shoving camera lenses where the sun doesn't shine, and it's not that romantic.
Yeah, that's true. It's not sexy when you've got 10 cameras watching you.
Yeah, he says it's not that good. Like, yeah, can you just turn your head this way a bit more, and can you just do that a little bit more? I watched the documentary on the DVD the other night. It was quite interesting. Yeah, so that is our little review of Don't Look Now, the 1973 movie. I'd like to thank you guys. I'd like to thank Susan, Tim, Connor, and Ethan for his popping out of the cast. You guys out there, please leave a comment. Let us know what you thought of this cast. Let us know if you like suggestions for future casts. And if you'd like to join our casts, please contact us, message us. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, YouTube as well. And YouTube, please press the bell notification button, and every time we put a video up, you'll get a little ding, and so you can watch us in HD or whatever you want to watch us in. Just think of looking at Connor in HD.
In glorious Blu-ray.
Glorious Blu-ray.
What?
Connor Farley. And on that bombshell, it's bye for now.